Around 16 years ago, I first spoke to Kate Allett from Sheffield. She was going to turn 40 that year, and to mark it, she'd planned to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in aid of Bluebellwood Children's Hospital. And this is where she's here now talking to me about all of that.
You know, a couple of years ago, I did a challenge, which was the Three Peaks Challenge, with some work colleagues, which was a fantastic experience. It gave us all a focus, and it just lifted my spirits. And we raised a load of money for charity. And with the big birthday approaching this year, I thought, you know, I could probably do with another focus just to brighten up the weeks, basically. So dreamt up Kilimanjaro.
Why this challenge?
I like doing things a bit differently. I'm competitive. I like to push myself, and I just felt that this was something that would really mark my big year, if you like. And At the same time, I felt, it could arguably a fairly selfish thing to do in some ways. I've got to leave 3 children at home. I think I could do good. So, by combining it with Bluebellwood Children's Hospice and raising some money for them, I think it's good all round.
Kate Allett. So that interview was on the 3rd of February 2010, and a couple of days later, on the 7th, something completely unexpected happened that would change Kate's life forever. Here she is in November 2010 telling Roni what had happened.
On the 7th of February in this year, I had a massive stroke. I had a blood clot on my brainstem, and it left me in a coma for 3 days and on life support machine. And 3 weeks later, the doctors realised I could hear and blink, and every bit of my body was paralysed apart from my eyes.
So, a lot has changed since then, and Kate, I'm very pleased to say, is here with me in the studio to talk about a book that she's written about this experience. How do you feel listening to that then? Wow. Your face said it all when you were listening.
It's emotional. I miss that old voice, but I also hear the fanaticism of my life then. I was working 80-hour days, trying to be hands-on with the kids and run my marketing business. And then obviously the absolute shattering voice of me after my illness and where I've come from, really. Proud, but it's hard to listen to because I miss that old Kate, actually. I miss the old mum more than anything. And really, I wrote Running Free. It was published 6 months after I came out of hospital, and that was a non-fiction with a ghostwriter, and that's gone internationally published, which I'm dead proud of. But this project means a lot to me because it's called Still Mum, and I am looking for a publisher and a film producer, if you like. Warp, are you listening? And and really, it's my love letter to my children. And if, to be honest, I'm sitting here really honest, if it never gets published, it'll be with my will, and my kids can read it after I've gone, because it matters to me to put my side of the story. For me to explain why I made the choices I did is really important. And really, in a nutshell, my whole self-worth all my life has been based on proving, giving to people all around the world, people-pleasing, and massively overachieving. From the work to my running, which was 70 miles a week, everything I did was, if I did more, you might like me. If I did more, you might love me. You might be proud of me. So all my self-worth has been wrapped up in overachieving. And
so not only did you have a stroke, but you had a stroke that caused you to have locked-in syndrome. Do you want to remind us of what that was like for you?
Yeah,
And what it is.
Locked-in syndrome is very clinical, but essentially it's like the last end stage of motor neuron disease. Most people know it. That's the grim. Overnight. Not overnight, in a second. And it's where you could think, feel, see, hear everything, but move absolutely nothing. Initially, I was considered vegetative, which I wasn't. I was always able to understand and see, assuming my head was pointing in the direction of the action. So yeah, it's grim. So this project of mine is what I've learned over the years and what I need to say and what I need my kids to read if they want to after I've gone, if I don't get it published. But it deals with issues of betrayal, identity, friendship.
Betrayal?
Yeah, there is betrayal in that. I was with somebody for 30 years, and how that affected me, and wrapped up in that whole self-worth thing I've just been talking about. But the focus is really about motherhood. It's an unbelievable story. Yeah, it's mostly true, but it is dramatised because I want to protect my children. They're the most important thing.
Let's talk about, in fact, we're going to go back. We're going to have a bit of music and then we're going to come back and talk about that experience of you being able to feel. You could feel, could you? You could feel,
everything.
You could see, but you couldn't move anything.
I couldn't speak.
You couldn't speak, but you could feel, you could see, you could hear, but so your senses were okay then, but nothing else works.
No, it's as though if someone touched my hand, I could feel them massaging my feet. Those messages went up to my brain to let me know that my foot's being massaged, but I couldn't, from my brain, tell my foot to move.
Incredible. BBC Radio Sheffield, Kate Allett's with us. She's talking about her experience of locked-in syndrome, and she's got a book. She's got a new book. You've done another book before. This is called Still Mum, talking a bit more about your parenting and how that felt for you and what you were thinking about when it comes to your children when you were in that state. I've asked if people have been through any kind of illness that's transformed their lives to get in touch. And if that is you and you're listening, please get in touch and tell us how illness has transformed your life. 0800 111. I'm having a good old conversation with Kate Allett. You may remember Kate, who, was going up to her 40s, lots to do, busy in a job, all sorts of things going on, mother of 3 children, was it?
Right.
And you had a stroke, which led to locked-in syndrome. And one of the things I want to talk about, because this new book is called Still Mum, it's not your first book. How is this book different then to the book that you wrote before?
Right, okay, Running Freya, it's on Amazon, and it's internationally published. I'm dead proud of it. I started writing it the day I left hospital, and it was a friend of a friend who was a publisher, and it all happened for that reason. And the reason I wanted to write it was I wanted to know what my children, what I'd done to get home, and I was convinced I'd have another stroke and this time I'd die. That's my mindset. So this was rushed out when I couldn't speak, as you could hear, and I'm dead proud of it because I didn't pull any punches, and it was my truth, and it was very much my journey of rehab and how I basically proved the doctors wrong, which I am, and they thought I was an anomaly, and then I set up a charity and I proved it wasn't. People did what I did and they improved their outcomes around the world. And so, I put that to bed as well, that you can't say I'm just a one-off. So this one's very different because this is looking back and saying this is what I want my children to know when I'm not here, or even if I am here, why I made the choices I did. It's a very gritty and very funny book, actually, darkly funny book. And basically it's wrapped up in this whole idea is a woman cheats death, survives everyone's worst nightmare.
Because it's fictionalised,
yes,
isn't
it's a fictionalised, dramatised book of my life to protect people I love.
Yes.
Cheats death, survives the most unimaginable illness, the one that most people fear, only to discover that surviving was the easy part. The last 15 years for me have been so difficult, personally, professionally off the scale with my speaking career, international, and my charity and all that stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of good has come out of this awful time of yours, hasn't it, Kate?
Can I just tell you, in all that time I ran my charity voluntarily, we did it globally, and I went to visit people. The one person of all the thousands I've helped over the years, which I'm dead proud of, Christine, she had locked in for 17 years. She heard me on this morning. She then, for some reason, she wanted to she wanted to meet me. I went to go and see her. She laughed, and I saw some movement in her mouth, and I said, Christine, do you want me to do something with that? And she nodded. She was completely locked in with a headrest. So long story short, I spoke to a company in Darlington, and I said, I've got a guinea pig. She's got no money. But for some reason, after 17 years of nothing, 24-hour care, headrest, she wants to try and move her mouth. Oh, we've seen her on this morning. Go on, as it's you, we'll do it. They worked with her for 6 months. They lost the headrest. She supported her own head up. After 17 years of nothing. After 2 years, I'm fast forwarding, they ramped it up to twice a week, free therapy for her. She was able to stand, tilt from side to side, catch a ball. And then after 2.5 years, she posted on Facebook a picture of her eating the biggest piece of chocolate cake. She had to go on a diet after that because she hadn't eaten in 20 years. That's Christine Waddell is my absolute favourite. And then she became an ambassador for my charity to represent the people who didn't have the outcomes I did. Incredible.
When I think about you then, I think about that locked in, and it frightens me to think about it and to imagine what your life was like then. Was there a lot of thinking? Because when we heard you, going up to your 40, full of energy, full of vibrancy, do you think that streak of vitality and of pushing and of wanting more and of being positive and of, using whatever capacity you had to change things, do you think that got you through then?
I have to be honest with you. I'm a middle child. I've got a chip on my shoulder. I'm very determined. If anyone says you can't do anything, like the doctor said they wanted to put me in a care home, that was my trigger to work as hard as I could to will every sinew in my body back to life. Didn't know it was going to work, just to hug my children and tell them I love them and be back. That determination streak's huge. But to be honest, my understanding from all the work I've done over the years, if something really, really, really matters to you, and you try really hard, and you will fail along the way, but you keep getting up and going forward. It's not how hard you get hit, but how hard keep going forward. Eventually, if you keep trying, you will always achieve. I mean, even if you wanted to run again and you had a spinal injury and you had 88 grand or 90 grand in the back pocket for an equipment to help you, walk the marathon or whatever, if it meant that much to you and you had the money, you'd do it. But the secret is, whatever it is, it's got to really, really, really matter. And I tell you what, the best motivation in the world was hugging my kids and telling them I love them.
Do you do that every day now then?
Well, they don't want to because
No.
they're older now.
Let them have it.
But no,
Kate.
you know what? I do tell them I love them. It's a very different trajectory that I'm on now. But I'm, my children, and the other learning is, we had a very difficult marriage, and that was a very difficult time for the kids on top of everything else. If we'd had a very different dynamic, then there would have been more support for my children in my absence. But, what I've learned from that is, and all the work I've done with all the families over the years, is we are very poor as a nation of supporting very young children after their parents have had life-changing events, because what happens is those children go into adulthood carrying a rucksack load of baggage because it's not been dealt with. And you could argue that in a normal family or a healthy family, no, there's no normal family, but in a healthy family there'd be conversations, there'd be support, and where that's not the case, then I think those children slip through. So I'm very aware that I think my children have been through hell, to be honest, as a result of my illness. But we've all been through hell. And,
Who would you want to read your book then? I mean, obviously you said you'd like it to be a film. That'd be great. Who would you think would benefit from your book? You've kind of touched on it, but I'd like you just to...
Yeah, no, I honestly think for anybody who's ever felt lost, broken, invisible, grieving, disabled. I think disabled people have a really rough time in life, and they need to, and they've been left behind in a world that's just kept going. When they want to laugh again, they want to feel happy, and they want to fall madly, wildly back in love with themselves, not someone else, themselves. I get to know their self-worth comes from them. Self-worth isn't wrapped up in proving, overachieving, giving to strangers all around the world just to feel good about yourself. What I learnt in lockdown, self-worth exists simply because I do.
And that's it, Kate. So we're hoping this book gets published. That's one of the things you're working on.
And Warp, if you're listening, please call me.
I love that you're still going for it. Kate, thank you for joining us on BBC Radio Sheffield. Thank you for talking to us. And we're glad you're doing so well because you look great.
Do you know what, Anne? You do too. And you
Never
are an
mind me.
absolute star. And it's such an honour to be back with you, Paulette.
It's an honour to be back with you.
After all those years.
Yeah, we've had a good old chat, haven't we? Kate, thank you very much. Kate Allett.